Hey everyone, so last week I started posting a blog series about how you deploy machine learning models inside Docker containers. And I wrote this big blog about how you deploy a web app into a Docker container. So in the blog it talks about how the hello world basically just checks that your Docker environment is working. And while that's okay, it doesn't really make sure that our stuff is actually working, and it really doesn't teach us the core fundamentals of what Docker is. So I wanted to take this video to sort of go through the process step by step as a video so you can see it. You'll have all the code associated with this in the blog. It should all be on my GitHub by now as well. So have a look, grab the code, grab the working solution, read through the blog, or watch this video and we'll have a look at how we can deploy a web app into Docker. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, so if you've been on the website, advancinganalytics.co.uk, that's where you'll find this blog. So this blog is the first one at the moment which is showing for me, which is Docker for Data Science building a web app. So this app looks to take you through a whole load of basics that you need to know ahead of time. So what's a Docker file? How does it work? How does this stuff work? So how does your Docker file work in relation to your application code, your files, your dependencies, and which base image you inherit from? So have a good read through that. Have a good read of the breakdown of a Docker file, and then it takes you through a whole load of stuff of actually building out and deploying an application. So that's what I want to look at now. So I'm running VS Code and I've got a couple of command prompts open here. I've got an Anaconda prompt and I've got a Powershell prompt. Now, if you need to manage dependencies in Python, I thoroughly recommend you look at Conda. I'm going to be using Conda. At the moment, I'm running on the Conda base, so the base installation of Python. I actually have a better version that I want to use for this, which is using Python 3.6.8. So I'm just going to switch to that using Conda. So if I key in activate py36, that's going to switch me over to using my Python 3.6.8, which is what I want to be using for all of these demos. Okay. So I've got a solution in VS Code. And in this solution, I've got all my Python, I've got all of my Docker files, I've got everything I need, and we'll talk through it step by step. So the first thing that it says in there is you need to create the application code in Python, and you also need to create the application code in HTML. So we're going to be using a Python a Python sort of backend and a HTML front end. The Python using Flask is going to act as a web server, and when we send responses to it via a REST API, we're going to get some responses back. So it will tell you to create something a little bit like this in Python. So it says up here, first thing, if you've never seen Python before, you've got from Flask import Flask and render template. So that is a library which we're going to use that we're going to import, and we're also going to import random. Now, if we had more images here, which is what we're going to be presenting back, you can grab any image you like and stick it in here. Random will show you various different images. For now, it's just going to show you one image. So we start up here. App equals flask underscore underscore name underscore underscore. Now that's saying that what you want to do is sort of instantiate an object of Flask. So this is going to be our running web app. And down here we say, well, what's the entry point for that? If it's main, which is what Flask is going to run on, then run on our localhost 0000. So basically run on localhost. So run on localhost port 80. Then I've got my app root. And I've got this bit here. So this is a function that I've defined inside Python, which is going to be run when anybody goes to the root of this application. So here we've got app.root /. So that's saying when you go to the index of the page, that's what I want you to look at. Okay. And then we've got the crux of it here. So URL's choosing a random image from up here, which has a fully qualified URL, and we're returning render template index HTML, and we're passing through the URL. So that is saying, use this function render template. That's expecting a folder called templates, and in there it's going to look for index.html. It's going to pass through our URL as URL. If we have a look at that index.html file, we have got a very basic HTML document. So we've got a HTML tag followed by a head tag. We've got some CSS here, a body background, a div container, some styles. We've got a h4 as well. And then all we're doing is we're creating a single div, giving it a h4 of Wales, passing through that image and a little bit of text. So if you've managed to get that far, what we can do is we can run that. So I'm going to run that using the Anaconda prompt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Python to run this. There are a number of ways that you can do this. I'm a big fan of the Anaconda prompt, so I'm just going to use that for the moment. So I'm just going to copy the path to this. I'm going to go into my Anaconda prompt, zoom in here. I'm just going to navigate to where this is. Okay, so here what we can see is I'm one level up, so I'm just going to go one level further. Okay, and there's my app.py. So now if I just type in python app.py, which has slightly gone off the screen here. There we go, python app.py. That should start this running on localhost. Now, as long as I don't have anything actually running on localhost, then this will work for us. So let's do Control C. Oh, sorry, I don't want to do Control C. I'll get that running again. Let's get out of this view. If I open up a new version of Chrome or Edge or any browser, and I navigate to localhost, and this one port 5000, I see this web application. Okay, so this is what is running. Which is basically what we're going to build every time. So this image is going away and being downloaded, and then every time you access this, it's being rendered and put back to you. So that's the application that we're building. That's it running locally on my machine using Python, and that's fine. That maybe is okay. It's maybe what we want. Let's find another image and we'll stick that in there. Let's find another image of a whale. Here's this one taking a selfie. We'll just copy the image location, switch back over to our Python code. Hit save. Now, what I don't have here is app.run, this host is running on here. Now, I could say what I want is debug to be equal to true, and that would have torn down my application and rebuilt it, but I don't. So I'm going to crash the app. So I'm just pressing Control C here to crash my Python window. If I come back over here and I try and run this, it should fail. That does fail. So now if I close that one, if I come back over in here, what we can see is, if I get this guy running again, come back in here now, we've got that one, but maybe if I redo it, oh, there we go, we've got a slightly different image. I say the rendering on this isn't too great, it's pushed it off the page, but you get the idea, it's just going to show us a different image. And that works in Python fine, but what we want to do is we want to get that working in something else. So we want to get that working in, say, our Docker container. So let's have a little look at how we'd get this containerized. So first things first, we need a Docker file. We need to tell this application how it's going to run. So I've created one of those here, and let's break this down a bit. So we've got here, the base image that we're going to inherit from is Python 3.6.8. We're locking this down to a particular version. We don't want it to go beyond that. That's what it's going to run on. That's what it's always going to run on. We're saying then, copy everything from the local folder to this folder /app. Then set the working directory to /app. Run a pip install over our requirements.txt. So what this is going to do is it's going to find this guy, and then it's going to say, well, for every single thing, what I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to do like a for each loop over this, but every time you see anything, what I want you to do is just do a basic pip install. Okay? And that pip install is just going to go loopy loopy loop, and it's going to install everything in there. Then the last thing that we have here, the last two bits, is we've got this expose. So we're saying expose port 5000. So that is the port 5000 that is running in Python. And then it's going to run through into our Docker container. And then it's going to come back out to us on working on our computer That's a very poor drawing of a computer, but it's going to pass through port 5000 all the way along. And then that last thing there saying, well, how are we going to do this? Well, you're going to use Python, and you're going to use app.py, and that's what you're going to use to run. So they're all the things that we need to get that running from Docker. Let's have a quick look at that requirements. So now we needed Flask. I'm locking this down to Flask 0.12. Now this is so I could have written this just like this. My requirements are Flask, and that would go away and do a pip install of the latest version of Flask. However, what if there was a problem with that? What if something changed? The next time you try to run this, you'd pull in the latest version of Flask and you break something. We then have a bit of a problem with our dependencies. So by saying using Flask 0.12, I'm locking that down and it's never going to use anything else, which is what we want. That's a good way to handle dependencies. On my local machine, I do the same thing with Conda. In Docker, I do that with this kind of approach of a requirements.txt file. Let's close that. Let's close our application code. And then we don't have anything else particularly in here. We have a README, but there's nothing in there. So the core of what we have in here is we have a folder. We've got a templates folder with an index.html file, our application code, our Docker file. Note here, there's no extension on this. It's just Docker file. And then that's telling everything that we need and how we get this working. So now I'm going to switch over to using PowerShell, and we're going to use PowerShell to run this now in a container. So first thing I need to do is stop this one from running. So it's going to stop Python from running our image. It doesn't want to run, stop, so we'll just kill the prompt. Let's go back over here and make sure that's no longer working. Okay, that's no longer working. So let's look at how we can get this working inside Docker. So first thing you need to do is navigate to, again, that location of where that exists. So I'm just going to copy the path here. I'm going to switch this over to use that location, say change directory, cd, pass that in, and then let's clear the screen. Let's expand this window if you don't need it shrunk. Let's do a quick dir and see what's in here. So there's that templates folder, our app.py, our Docker file, readme, and that requirements. So now what I can do is I can tell Docker to go away and build that for us. Right, so it's going to be looking in this location for a Docker file. So all we need to do here is we need to say docker build -t. We're going to call this Wales, all lowercase. And then crucially, we're going to put a dot in there to say you're going to build from this folder. Now what this is doing here is you'll see step 1 of 6 is going to start pulling from Python 3.6.8. So that is an image which exists in a public repository on hub.docker.com. And that's pulling that in and using that as the base image. It's then going to layer everything on top until it comes up with a working version of that image. And we've built a new image based on a previous image of Python 3.6.8, which we inherited from, did a load of stuff, and we bolted our code on top. And now that has built a new image. And so that looks like that's all gone through. If I now type in Docker images, let's clear this screen again. Docker images, and what you can see here is we've got two things. So we've got Wales, which is our lovely application that we've created, and we've got Python, which has a tag of 3.6.8. So that is the base image that I inherited from. I needed to pull that down locally before I could use it. I've got that there. If I need to do this again, I just rebuild it and all that code is still there. Then we've got our Wales. Now this is an image, there are no containers running. If I run docker ps, you can see here that there's nothing running. This would be showing me all my applications which are running if there was anything, but there isn't. So let's get that running. So we need to type something like this, docker run. Docker run Wales. Now, if I run this and we try to run our application, so let's do that. Let's kick that one off. Okay, so now that says it's running. If I come over to my website and I try to view this, yeah, it's still not working, right? Because what this is doing at the moment is that's running on port 5000 inside the Docker container, but nothing is running on port 5000 on my local machine. I need to port forward from my machine into that container so that this works. So let's stop that one from running. So here I can hit Control C and it looks like it's stopped, but that hasn't actually stopped. So if I do Docker PS to see my containers which are running, you can still see that that one is running, and it's been given this lovely name, Loving Ardenel Heli, because I didn't give my image a name to run under, so it's just generated a random name. So let's stop that. So we can just say Docker stop Loving ARD stop that one, and that will stop that image from running. Once that finishes, we can run Docker PS again, and we can see nothing's running there. So now what we can do is we can say Docker run Wales, but this time do port 5000 to port 5000. So on the left hand side here, that's my port that I want to map to, and that's the port of the Docker container on the right side. So keep things simple, we'll just do the exact same thing. And that one has kicked up a fuss. Hold on. So we had a couple of problems then. We're going to get that running up, get it running again. So what I was doing before was just a little bit of syntax thing. I was specifying the port after the image is getting a little bit caught up. So what I actually needed to do was just to switch the syntax around. But now I've done that, what I want to show you is a good way that you can just stop stuff from running, and we'll start again. So what I can do is, if I run Docker PS, you can see that Wales is running. Now if I want to stop that, I can write that out as I did before, or what I can also do is just write out a little handy snippet, which is this: Docker stop $ open bracket and then Docker PS -AQ. And what that's going to do is that's going to pass through a list of all of the running containers to a Docker stop command. It's going to stop everything. So you've got multiple things running, probably not a good idea, but for what we're doing, that works fine. That's going to stop our stuff. So that's stopped a whole load of things of mine running. If I run Docker PS now, you'll see there's nothing running, which is good. Right, now, our image is here as well. So I'm just going to clear the image down. So Docker RMI. And we're going to remove our Wales. We're going to say that we want that to be forced, and that's cleared that now. So if I look at Docker images, I just have Python 3.6.8. So let's rebuild that. So Docker build -t Wales dot. So now it doesn't need to download 3.6.8 again now, it should just have that, and it's going to get that built out for us. Right, now what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go away and I'm going to copy the code required to do this actually from the blog. Okay, let's clear this page down so we can see what we're working with. Let's paste that in. So now we're running Docker run -p 5000 to 5000 and on Wales. So now we can see that's running. So if we go along to our website and we hit go, ta-da, we've got our Wales. And if we do that, you know, they randomly change. Sometimes it shows you one image, sometimes it shows you another. And we can see that all happening here because of the debug. So let's close that. Let's hit Control C. So now that's quit that. But what we can see now, as we still go in here, is this still works fine. So although we've disconnected our terminal to Docker, that is still running. And if we run Docker PS, you can see that that container is running there. Now I could run Docker stop, same way as I did before. So I'm just going to say Docker stop all images. Once that stops, we'll have a look at it and see if it's still running. So that's stopped all those images. We come over here, localhost 5000, and that is no longer working. So that is everything we've done to get that application deployed. So let's go back in and let's have a look at what we had. So we had an application running on app.py, and we tested that with Python. We got that running locally, and then we stopped that. Then we built a Docker file which just said how it's going to run, and then we used Docker to build that into an image, and then we used Docker to run that as a container locally. Now the next steps what we would need to do is get that tagged, and then get that deployed to a container registry, and then from there get that pushed into something like Kubernetes. And that's what we'll look at doing in the next blog. However, we'll do that under the context of actually deploying a machine learning model. Alright, great. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope that's filled in some of the gaps that the blog might not have, and I thanks very much for your feedback on that, and hopefully you've enjoyed. For this and for other content, head on to the YouTube site, and for anybody interested in data science in production, head over to dsip.co.uk for Data Science in Production, the podcast, and for anything else, check it out on advancinganalytics.co.uk. Thanks very much.